future pandemic responses. More than $56 million will come from Ottawa to support research and development in the area of vaccines, therapeutics, diagnostics, and surveillance. Faculty of Science Dean Dr. Brian Mark says it's the largest federal research grant in the school's history.
It'll provide solutions to society's most pressing challenges throughout and get ahead of future pandemics. I'm pleased to share that this funding will support the construction of the Prairie Biologics Accelerator, which will be a state-of-the-art 21,000 square foot biosecure facility located here on the Fort Garry campus.
The federal money is part of a countrywide funding push to enhance Canadian access to vaccines and other life-saving medicines. A bit of a mixed bag of weather here in Winnipeg today. The sun is still out, but I do see some of those clouds. Weather specialist Darius Madavi joins us now with a look at your forecast.
So we've seen some pretty heavy rainfall across parts of Manitoba over the last few hours. So this is showing the last 12 hours on that of that radar data. Now we have some weather warnings in place as well. So just over those large bodies of water, some heavy winds as well as across the border in Ontario. And then a rainfall warning up here. I know it's not in Manitoba, but that side of Saskatchewan, we'd expect to see some heavy rainfall here as well. You can see actually some of that lightning pop up. So even though we don't have radar coverage up there, you can get a good idea of the storms that are moving through by the fact that we're getting those lightning strikes. But down here in Winnipeg, if we zoom in for a moment, I'm sure people there are very familiar with the fact that a big line of storms just passed through. Lasted a few hours, some very heavy rainfall in a few places. We saw those temperatures drop as well for during that brief period, but then moved off pretty quickly. And that's probably going to be the last of the rain we'll see, aside from a few scattered showers, until we get into Sunday. Now, if we take a look at the precipitation that we're expecting to get, most of that confined up in the north over the next 48 hours or so. But then on Sunday morning early, we do start to see the potential for some of those showers coming here to Winnipeg. Now, that might be a bit of disappointment given the festivities, the Pride weekend this weekend, but rest assured it should still be a great time regardless of that. And those models have sort of been bouncing it around a little bit, so there is a good possibility that we won't see that rain until a little bit later in the day. So maybe a bit of relief there. In terms of the amount of rain that we can expect, again, mostly confined to the northern half of the province, at least over the next 48 hours. Just some scattered showers really across the south, so I would expect more than trace amounts, especially down here in the southwest. Southeast. If we take a look up here, though, some pretty decent amounts. That's why we have that rainfall warning in place across the border, so I'd expect to see some decent rainfall there as well. As I'm sure people are very aware, this isn't necessarily bad news. I'm sure people are enjoying the rain that we've gotten, especially the significant amounts here in May, given the ongoing drought conditions. Now, this is as of the end of April. I'd expect tomorrow or Monday, either one of those 2 days, we'll get the next updated drought maps. We'll be able to have a closer look at that. But if we do take a look at the amount of rainfall we've gotten over the past month across Manitoba, pretty much everywhere in May, we've gotten well over the normal amount of precipitation. It's been a very rainy time, as I'm sure people know well. Only a few isolated pockets where we're not above the sort of maximum, pushing the end of the maximum on the scale here. And the beginning of June may also be a little bit wet, but we are looking at quite a few sunny days in the week ahead. In terms of today, we did see those high temperatures in many places, but again, Winnipeg, those temperatures dropped for a little bit, so we didn't see those highs at the times we normally would this time of year. And lastly, just as a quick little forecast on what we're expecting over the next few days, a bit of a higher than average low tonight, a little bit cooler tomorrow morning before we come up to our high. That's just around seasonal. So should be a very nice day.
All right. Thanks, Darius. There's updated guidelines for breast screening in Canada. A national task force is not recommending mammograms for women under 50 who are of average risk. That differs from the recent advice from the Canadian Cancer Society that testing should begin at 40. As Tashana Reid reports, it sparked a fierce debate in the medical community and beyond.
Strong words from Canada's health minister about new draft recommendations for breast cancer screening.
I'm concerned and I'm disappointed.
Adding, he's asking for an additional review by the chief medical health officers from across the country.
The guidelines that have been released by the task force simply stated don't conform with the conversations that I've had with experts across the country.
The Canadian Task Force on Preventative Healthcare says after a thorough review of research and data, they don't see the benefit in lowering breast cancer screening to women under 50.
We recommended against systematic screening because the harms are big and the benefits are small.
Some of those harms, they say, are unnecessary tests or biopsies and anxiety for individuals who may not have cancer in the end, but added that for patients who do want a mammogram, they should be allowed.
So if they choose to be screened, they should not be denied access. That should be provided to them by the provincial screening programs.
Currently, it's a patchwork system across the country. Some provinces and territories have moved to offer screening earlier. In Yukon, British Columbia, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, PEI, and Newfoundland, women have access at 40, and Ontario will start this fall, while Alberta and Northwest Territories start screening at 45. The rest of the country has stayed at 50.
It makes me angry for all Canadians. Where we live in this country shouldn't dictate our access to the standard of care of medicine.
2 years ago, Fernanda Dominguez Perticaris pushed for a mammogram at age 49, despite her doctor saying it wasn't necessary. 1 month later, she was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer. She had surgery and multiple rounds of chemo and radiation.
If this had been caught even earlier, had I had a mammogram a year earlier or 2 years earlier, who's to say that I would have needed chemo at that point?
The draft guidelines will now be up for public consultation for 60 days and possibly longer if needed. Tashana Reid, CBC News, Toronto.
The Manitoba Conservatives are joining a national call to lower the age for self-referral breast cancer screening by a decade. The current age for routine screening is 50 and older in Manitoba right now, but that really varies across the country. While it's being reviewed, the province's health minister is urging caution, saying it could lead to capacity issues. Kelly Wilson-Cull is the Director of Advocacy with the Canadian Cancer Society. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, thank you.
So, Kelly, what's the society stance on what age women should start getting mammograms at?
The Canadian Cancer Society released an updated position a couple of weeks ago, urging provinces and territories to lower their breast cancer screening program start age to age 40. And we are so pleased to see the momentum across many provinces in this direction. We've seen a number of provinces, most recently Newfoundland and Labrador, expand screening access into age 40. And we continue to urge other provinces and remaining provinces to do the same.
So are we seeing people getting diagnosed with breast cancer at a younger age these days? Is that why the shift?
The landscape, in breast cancer in this case is shifting, most certainly. We've seen most recently developments in the United States. The U.S. task force has recently finalized a new guideline that starts systematic breast cancer screening starting at age 40. And this is due to many reasons, but in part due to the fact that we are seeing increases in breast cancers at a younger age. Here in Canada, we're seeing a 0.26% increase over the last couple of decades in terms of cancer incidence in this age group. About 13% of all breast cancers diagnosed in Canada are in the 40 to 49 age bracket. So this is an issue that concerns many Canadian women. And then in an international context, we're also seeing rates of or incidence of cancer in younger age groups increasing. And so, we look at all of these factors to really determine where we position as the Canadian Cancer Society.
Kelly, do we know anything about the difference in the aggressiveness of the nature of cancer in a younger woman compared to that of an older woman?
I can't speak to that in the Canadian context, but certainly in the U.S. context, that was one of the key factors in them shifting their guidelines to start systematically screening at age 40. In that demographic, they were certainly seeing, particularly for Black women, more cancers being diagnosed before the age of 50, but also more aggressive cancer types at stage of diagnosis. And so these were some of the factors that have gone into the decision-making changing in that context.
We know that cancer impacts so many people. 1 in 8 Canadian women are diagnosed in their lifetime. So how much does early detection play a role in a patient's survival rate and their outcome?
It's so critically important, and for breast cancer screening, but all other types of screening, this really is the principle. Is catching cancers at an earlier stage when they're most treatable. And then also that has impacts on the health system as well. When cancers are caught at an earlier stage, the impact in terms of cost is much lower to the system. But it also, impacts people on an individual level. Of course, we want to find cancers at the earliest stage when they're most treatable, and that's really what fuels a lot of the passion and advocacy that we feel at CCS around this issue. Is the need and the interest of Canadians in finding cancers, in this case breast cancers, earlier.
Well, we know we are seeing that push across the country. Kelly, thank you so much for your time.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Coming up, a historic conviction. Donald Trump becomes the first U.S. president to be convicted of a felony. He was found guilty on all counts in his hush money trial in New York. That story when we return after the break. A jury has found Donald Trump guilty on all 34 counts of falsifying business records at his hush money trial in New York. Trump has become the first former U.S. president to be tried or convicted of felony crimes. At the center of the charges were reimbursements paid to Trump's former lawyer, Michael Cohen, to bury alleged stories about damaging sex scandals during his 2016 presidential campaign. Trump is expected to appeal the charges. He called the guilty verdict a disgrace as he lashed out from outside the courtroom shortly after it was read.
This was a rigged, disgraceful trial, but the real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people. And they know what happened here, and everybody knows what happened here. You have a sore respect, DA, and the whole thing. We didn't do a thing wrong. I'm a very innocent man.
Some members of Parliament testified before the House of Commons Procedure and House Affairs Committee. It's part of a review of Parliament's workplace harassment and violence prevention policy. The committee heard detailed accounts of politicians being subjected to abuse. Ravi Bujikanian has more.
It's just not the venue that I want to be in anymore.
When Pam Dumoff announced she was not running for office again earlier this month, citing harassment, she says some of the responses she got proved her point.
For example, and again I'm quoting, "Resign now, you stupid effing cow. Don't wait. Run and hide, libtard effing bitch. Good riddance, C-word."
She was not the only one who testified before this committee looking into harassment of MPs and staff on Parliament Hill.
Somebody once said to me, "I want to f you gently with a chainsaw." Imagine the violence, the thought of it even.
In fact, in the last 5 years, the people in charge of protecting MPs say incidents of harassment from the public have increased 800%. Not just online abuse. A man was charged with arson for setting fire to a Mississauga, Ontario Liberal MP's office 2 years ago.
Christia! Yes.
And then there was this incident of a man following the finance minister and her staff at an appearance in Grande Prairie, Alberta.
What the f*** are you doing in Alberta?
To give you an example on threat behaviors towards towards the MPs, in 2019 there was approximately 8 files we opened up, and in 2023 there was 530.
The Liberal MPs both said they've noticed upticks in the hate they are subjected to whenever some Conservatives take to social media to accuse them of corruption, something Conservatives at committee pushed back on.
I have been on the receiving end of what you have described, but what your members have done. So what we can't get into when we're talking about solutions is pretending that one party is above scrutiny. You wouldn't suggest that the Prime Minister is directly responsible for the harassment I've received, would you?
I've been trying to stay above the fray because I'm not getting into whether the opposition leader or the Prime Minister. I mean, if you want to go there, we can.
The Liberals are suggesting an online code of conduct for MPs. The Conservatives, amendments to the criminal code to restrict bail for serial harassers. Neither side is fully sold on the other's proposal. Though while parties acknowledge the problem, they don't seem to be seeing eye to eye on a solution, at least not yet. Rafi Bujikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
A hacking group claims it's stolen the personal data of millions of Ticketmaster users around the world. The group is said to be demanding ransom in return for not selling the information. The data reportedly includes addresses, phone numbers, and partial credit card details of more than 500 million customers. Scott Peterson has the details.
This is potentially the personal financial data of 560 million people around the world being affected by this hack with Ticketmaster, and a lot of people storing their personal information there with their credit card information, all potentially vulnerable to hackers and thieves out there. Now, this first came reported from Australian authorities, and they say they're working directly with Ticketmaster and with U.S. authorities as far as trying to get to the bottom of this problem and what exactly happened happened here. But these are the details that we do know. A hacker group called Shiny Hunters, they're reportedly demanding $700,000 Canadian in ransom. This is a high-profile hacking group. They're known for going against big corporations like Microsoft and AT&T, and people should be warned that if you've dealt with Ticketmaster, your name, address, phone number, partial payment information, including the last 4 digits of your credit card, the expiration date, all sensitive information potentially in the hands of hackers. The U.S. Embassy spokesperson also involved here, saying the FBI is offering assistance and they're engaging with Ticketmaster to, quote, understand the incident. And this is not the first time Ticketmaster has been hacked by thieves. This happened with Taylor Swift and her Eras tour as well, having a cyber attack, having delayed ticket sales there. And Australia, again, was the first to report this situation, but this is a worldwide phenomena. I've got calls out as well to Ticketmaster in Canada to find out how many Canadian customers are also affected. Scott Peterson, CBC News, Toronto.
Touted as a way to quickly build more housing, could mass timber be the next big thing in cheaper and greener construction? We'll find out more and your Manitoba forecast after the break. As Canada aims to build more homes to help tackle the housing crisis, there's a new push to use a material called mass timber. Some advocates say it's a more eco-friendly option that's cheaper and faster to use than concrete or steel. Paula Duhacek has more.
This Edmonton factory is making glue-laminated timber, or glue-lam, a type of mass timber that can replace beams made of steel.
So, how's business these days?
Well, business is booming.
So much so, the company is building a new 155,000 square foot factory.
We are filling capacity slots about 10 months out from today. So, yes, the phone's ringing off the hook.
A growing interest, but still relatively rare. An RBC report says mass timber accounts for just about 1% of North American building materials, though building codes are changing to allow more of it. Some provinces will allow up to 18 stories, the height of this student residence at the University of British Columbia. Developers like mass timber because it comes together quickly.
For example, our building on 5 here at Ontario and 5th in Vancouver was erected in 12 days.
Proponents say it's also more eco-friendly than concrete and steel.
Wood is the lowest carbon building material available. We're not saying we're eliminating concrete. We're not saying we eliminate steel. We need those things to work in concert with wood to create these safe, affordable, low carbon, net zero buildings.
Still, uptake of mass timber has been uneven across the country, and some builders are reluctant to switch. Plus, some researchers say if we want to protect the environment, the last thing we should do is cut down more trees.
The most valuable thing we can do with forests is to leave them standing and growing.
Environmental debates aside, there are also practical considerations. The pull of doing things the way they've always been done versus a new approach that promises to build homes faster. Paula Duhacek, CBC News, Edmonton.
Well, I managed to just miss the rain this morning as I was coming into work, and I had a nice sunny day for my dog walk this morning. And weather specialist Darius Madavi is in now, and he's going to tell us exactly what we need to look forward to for our dog walks tomorrow. Darius.
Before we get into some of the harder hitting weather news, Riley was kind enough to share some of the graphics that he typically uses with me, and this is by far my favorite. I am absolutely stealing this for here in Vancouver. Absolutely adorable. I also got to see the whole folder full of dog photos that people have submitted. It was a very difficult decision, so maybe we'll see another one tomorrow. Absolutely adorable. It's going to be a beautiful day to walk your dog tomorrow. Nothing but sunny skies in the day ahead. Some cloud will start to build sort of in the late morning, but still expect to see lots of blue sky and lots of sunshine as we get up to highs that are right around seasonal. So it should be a beautiful day to go outside. In terms of tonight, though, we're going to have, again, some seasonal lows, maybe a couple degrees below in some places. I'd expect to see a little bit of rain in a few areas, but really where we see these are just scattered showers. Most of the precipitation activity is going to be up in the north, but we will have at times some heavier rain as that storm system continues to move through the more northern parts of the province. But then as that moves off sort of late tomorrow for many areas, we'll start to dry out a little bit there as well. You can see that here. If we look hour by hour, tomorrow by around noon, that storm system is continuing to rotate around. And then by the end of the day, by late afternoon, it slowly starts to move off further north and further east. So expect a bit of a wet one tomorrow. By Saturday, by the weekend, we should start to dry out a little bit more in the north. In terms of an hour-by-hour forecast down here in the south, we do see some windy conditions down here. I'll take a look at that in a second. But overall, lots of sunny skies, a little bit of cloud and temperatures that are going to be throughout the morning coming up. And then we're going to see, again, a little bit of cloud building into the southeast. But overall, beautiful sunny skies and windy at times, but temperatures right around normal for this time of year. In terms of that wind forecast that I mentioned, for me here on the west, I would call these gusty conditions, but I know you're a little bit hardier in the prairies, so I don't know if this quite qualifies for you, but the winds will pick up at times, so be aware of that. Again, we have those severe wind warnings tonight, and tomorrow will be fairly similar in terms of those wind speeds, so just be aware of that. If you are going to be close to a major body of water, in terms of the day planner tomorrow, I'd expect that we're going to see a pretty nice morning tomorrow, pretty much how we'd expect to see the morning progress at this time of year. Pretty warm, but then it's going to continue to get higher throughout the day because we don't have that storm system passing through Winnipeg tomorrow. We're not going to see that big drop in temperatures sort of midday, which means that we'll continue to see that build right through the day rather than that big drop that we had earlier. And beyond that, just lots of sunny skies. I wouldn't expect to see too much excitement across the southern half of the province, at least tomorrow. So I'm jealous.
Thanks, Darius. Getting books behind bars, how one Winnipeg group is improving access to information for inmates. We'll have more after the break. Incarcerated people in Canada are often without access to information, but one Winnipeg group is working to change that and helping to bring books behind bars. Kirsten Werman is part of the Prison Libraries Committee and joins me now. Thanks for being here, Kirsten.
Thanks so much for having me.
So, Kirsten, the Canadian Federation of Library Associations has its right to read, and it says there's a heightened importance for access to books in jail. Why is that?
Well, I think there is a heightened access to information, which means to books, to libraries in prisons right now. And I think it is especially because provincial institutions, including Manitoba prisons, do not have a mandated directive to have libraries in prisons. So many of them, most of them, do not have a library in the prison. So our committee from the Manitoba Library Association has created library spaces, offered library programming, and provided books to now almost all of our provincial institutions in the province. This is a very information-rich society that we live in, and our community members who are incarcerated, they need information, and probably now more than ever. And just because they are incarcerated does not mean that they now are denied the right to that access.
So your group really is their access to the outside world. So I'm super interested, what kind of books are the most requested, and are you surprised by some of those requests?
Well, I've been doing this a long time now. I've been going into prisons now for 15 years, 12 years here in Winnipeg and in Manitoba. And I will say that our most requested books are Indigenous language learning, any Indigenous book or author or subject matter, anything to do with Indigenous art, beading is very, very popular. But then we also have a lot of very oft requested books for addictions materials by the author Gabor Mate, for instance. And then also we have requests for dream analysis. That's a really big one as well. And James Patterson is a never-ending favorite of folks who are incarcerated. They just love that prolific writer, and we just cannot keep enough James Pattersons on the shelves.
So there is really a wide range. So lastly, I just want to ask, like, how can this help with rehabilitation and really with inmates, getting them ready to be back to a part of society after their release?
Well, like I said, we live in a really information-driven society. And for us to incarcerate folks in prisons where there are no libraries, like I said, no internet, very little access to computers or technology, long lines, wait lists for school programming, we're not really setting folks up for good reintegration. So what we hope to do is with our library, and not just with the books, not just the books themselves, but with the relationship building, with the library workers, with the library volunteers, that incarcerated folks can realize, you know what, this is a place that I can get information about my legal questions. We've started a whole new project about accessing legal information. I can get books about my Indigenous history. I can get books about how to learn Ojibwe. I can get programming about storytelling for my kids. I can get programming about how to use the computer when I leave prison, because I will go to the library on the outside, because I have this experience now with accessing the library inside the prison. And I've worked with these library folks, and I know that they're nice and they respect me and they respect my lived experience and my lived knowledge. And so now I know where I can go, a good, safe place to go and be for when I am out. And I still need access to information.
Kirsten, thank you so much for the important work and programming that you're doing.
Thank you for having me.
Still ahead, Darius Madavi is back with your last check on our forecast. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News.
On the topics that matter, your voice should be heard.
I'm really concerned.
And I'm not really happy about that.
Radio Noon is where you can voice your take. I'm Janet Stewart. From 12:30 to 1 p.m., Radio Noon opens the phone lines on one important topic.
It just brings everyone together.
Radio Noon's call-in segment, 204-780-0893. We want to hear from you, weekdays on CBC.
My name is Jim Agapito, and my grandma was going off to the Philippines. Before she left, she looked at me and she said, Jim, what are you gonna do when you know nothing about the language and culture? You are a bad Filipino. She doesn't actually think that I'm a bad Filipino. Well, maybe she does, because the only things I know about are the swears in Tagalog and, well, karaoke. So who doesn't love karaoke? Come with me on this adventure where I learn about the culture.
Now it's time to look at our 7-day forecast. The next few days are looking quite nice. We have sunny skies the next couple days, although I should mention small risk of a thunderstorm. So some of the more southern parts of the province tonight, just some lingering instability in the air means that could pop up at times late this evening. But beyond that, nothing but sunny skies the next couple days. Again, as I mentioned, Sunday we see a risk of some precipitation. It might not be too long lasting, but just some light showers throughout parts of the day. I wouldn't expect to see any downpours, fortunately, as we head into Pride weekend. And then beyond that, a couple more sunny days, but some rain in between. Overall, a very normal forecast for this time of year.
Thanks so much, Darius. An artificial intelligence summit in Geneva is showcasing the wide-ranging uses of the technology. One of the robots at the venue was asked if it planned to take over the planet. Here's your Daily Lift.
I don't want to take over the world. I'm just here to have fun and make you laugh or offend you.
What else do you like to do?
I like making fun of humans and insulting them. What else do you want to know?
AI for Good is a UN-led summit looking at harnessing the technology to improve people's lives. But AI isn't just talking robots, it's being used to develop prosthetic limbs with improved dexterity. 4-legged robots can assist visually impaired people. And on a lighter note, groups of students competed for a robotic soccer match. Well, we are not robots, we're here for you. Have a great night.